Hello and welcome to the third edition of the OLA Assembly slash variety entertainment slash online get together. For those of you who've seen the previous two editions, thank you so much for coming back and welcome back. There have been slight challenges in cracking the right medium to do this, but we are getting better, and apologies in advance if there appears to be a technical glitch. For those of you Laurentians who are coming here for the very first time, a very, very warm welcome. And this is going to be a 1 hour exercise that I hope that you will enjoy. There will be nostalgia, there will be music, there will be updates from school, and much, much more. Welcome aboard. My name is Gul Panag, and I shall be your host for this OLA Assembly, the third edition of the OLA Assembly. We're doing this because this is an effort put together by the OLA. They've seized the initiative in a very, very challenging time and used this opportunity that COVID-19 has provided us to put together a system of interaction, albeit virtually, to strengthen our already robust alumni community. And a big thanks to them. We're doing this so that we remain better connected, that we adapt to the new normal and continue on regardless by never giving in. The time taken for this will be 60 minutes. We hope to wrap by 6 p.m. And the response that we want from you all is to enjoy the show. And of course, chat on Facebook, on the OLA page. There will be members of the OLA standing by to respond to you. And this is my son who has decided to host this OLA assembly with me. And of course, the objective is to emerge stronger, better knit as an alumni community, better knit as a community across just batches, because typically we tend to be batch oriented. So the idea would be to make this a larger, vaster community, stronger, more robust, and exemplifying never give in. So without further ado, I'm going to call the OL Vice President, Ms. Elizabeth Beliappa Neetharakan, to come and give the welcome address.
Hi everyone, this is Elizabeth and I'm from the batch of 1970, Devda House. I can only say that I'm one of the very staunch Laurentians, and it became stronger as I became a parent of Lovedale. All my 3 children studied in Lovedale, so from the year 1990 till now, I rarely miss founders and I'm there all the time. So it actually gets me connected with people from across everything, every batch. And it has been such a good experience. And for me, it is no longer a batch. Yes, the batch is very strong and everyone knows the batch of 1970 is very strong. But now we are able to reach out. I'm even able to reach out to the children, to batchmates of my 3 children. So yes, this is my second term on the committee. The first term I was the secretary, then took a 2-year break, and this is the 3rd year of the second term where I've come on as vice president. So I'm also the president of the Bangalore chapter of the OLA. Bangalore is one of the strongest smaller chapters of the OLA. The OLA is extremely committed to bring everyone together, and also in this endeavor, we hope to be beneficial both to school and to all members. We are beyond batches. Networking is extremely important, and we are able to do it as we now have a fully functional alumni office in place on the campus. We want every one of you to be a part of this group. Now, Missing Founders 2020, because of the pandemic, has opened up the opportunity to reach out to everyone electronically, thanks to technology. It also inspired our 2 new events, the OL Assembly with all its nostalgia, fun, and the OL Nation, which is very educative and where we are introducing people from different decades, different walks of life with their knowledge, expertise in various fields. The positive response that we have got from your viewership and comments for both these events is extremely encouraging. So, among the very many suggestions was meeting different committee members and to bring on all the retired senior staff members of and senior OS. So we begin with one of our most special teachers, Mrs. Enos, on this assembly. Of course, you're going to meet one of the reunion batches and another, two or three other people. So I will now ask Gul to take the program through. Thank you so much for coming on air.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Really appreciate your words and giving us an idea of what's happening with the OLA and, of course, the incredible role that you've played over the years. I now invite our headmaster, Mr. Prabhakaran Nair, who's going to put us in picture about what exactly is happening in Lovedale. And I'm hoping he will take this one off me very, very soon, because I'm having a bit of a stressful time here trying to do this with my son in my lap. Over to you, Mr. Prabhakaran Nair, and good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Gulpanak, and I hope you can hear me. Thank you once again for inviting me for this session. And here, monsoon has started, and we are waiting for the CBSE result. Today, ICSE has declared the result. 15th, that is by next week. By this time, CBSE class 10th and 12th result will be published, and we are hoping a very good result, because most of our students are finished, especially class 10th has completed their exam. Class 12th, only 1 or 2 papers were pending that was cancelled, but based on an average mark, CBSE is going to evaluate it. And moreover, CBSE is also giving an opportunity later on when the situation improves, for giving students an opportunity of appearing for an improvement or a betterment examination. And we are started off with the OIL initiative, that is OIL knowledge sharing program, thanks to Sangeeta Jayaram, our alumni coordinator. This third session is over today, and a lot of responses have come, and now we are recording all those programs, and depending upon the availability and depending upon the duration, we are going to put that in our website, so that those experiences which are shared by OIL community will be there in the website, and it will be available for the entire world. So that's the next program we are going ahead with it. There are some concern in Nilgiris, because for the past couple of weeks, the COVID-19 cases are increasing. However, our area, Lawrence School, Lovedale area, is not much affected, but the regions in Coimbatore and areas like Wellington area and all is badly affected. Otherwise, we are keeping ourselves safe and maintaining a very tight security, so that we continue a COVID-free zone till as much as we can. Then today, we had a beautiful session with Anya Shastri, one of the daughter of an OIL family, OIL parent, batch of 87. It was very well received, and I must say that it's great, because the opportunity of learning is there everywhere. The classroom and the specific teaching of subjects in the classroom has sort of its own limitation. And also some of those programs which was done in OIL Nations last week, some experiences which are shared by the OIL senior members, so excellent. And we have recorded some of it, and definitely those experiences will be some of the informal way of sharing this with our students and teaching them and making them understand this is the way, this is the journey of quite a great stalwarts of our school. Coming back to any school at the moment, because of the school is closed for a long period, we also have made some decision on giving some concession on a fees this term. So we have communicated to the parent, and we are hoping that we are going to reopen either August or September, depending upon the decision from the Ministry of HRD. And this is a situation which everybody is facing through it. And online classes are going on. Our online classes are very, very well received by the parents and students. And we also started our evaluation. Last week was the first PA1 and CA1. The evaluation is also done. So apart from the games and various other important aspects of boarding school life that is missing, otherwise academics and activities, DG Splash and various competition online is also going on. So we are making our level best to put in the best we can during this crisis situation. That's all from my side. Thank you. Thank you for calling me. And definitely,
sir.
Gulpanag, I'll take care of your son. I hope you have registered your son in
I
Lawrence.
haven't yet, but I'm going to do that right away, and I can't wait for you to take him off my hands.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the update from
Thank
school. Glad to hear that things are very much in control of how you planned them, and I hope that they continue to go as per plan in the due course of time. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Good
Thank you.
evening. Thank you, sir. Good evening. Well, for those of you who've just joined us, we are in the third edition of the OLA Assembly, Variety Entertainment, and Virtual Get Together. A trip down memory lane is always part and parcel of these wonderful OLA assemblies that we sort of conduct. And please ignore him. A trip down memory lane is what we're going to be taking with Captain Arjun Nair from the batch of 1975. They put together a lovely photo album that they're going to be. Good evening, Captain Nair. How are you?
Vanakkam from Chennai. Well, thank you, Gul. Nice to be online with the OL Assembly.
And for those of you who are wondering what this is about, for those of you who are joining us the first time, we always do a trip down memory lane, and we're starting this walk and trip down memory lane with Captain Nair, who is going to give us glimpses of the batch of 1975 through a photo journey. Over to you, Karthik.
All right. Thanks a lot. While I'd like to start by dedicating this address to those 13 or so of our batchmates who left us well before it was time, I will probably read out what some of my thoughts and take many of you of our vintage down a little nostalgia trip. And for the others, let them see what life was when we were there and what we learned. The first thing that struck young, impressionable kids joining school at Lovedale was, wow, the heritage buildings, and then the abundance of nature all around with the freedom to frolic and to explore. There was also innocence. That's what Lovedale meant then, and it stayed with us. Right from around 1965, 1966, when several of our batchmates were preppers, and while occupied primarily those days with thoughts on how to avoid Dame touch, our Sundays were also about up and down the banks, a trek to Big Hill and the reservoirs, picking up little tadpoles and tiny fish in glass jars for our own aquaria, or watching with amazement what we called ABCD beetles whizzing around at the surface of stagnant pools along brooks, which we learned in later years was thanks to surface tension. Some natural nature lovers would find little grass snakes and bring them home in their battle jackets, alarm other housemates, or get the girls to scream in class. Many of us got over our frights there by learning to handle insects, snakes, darkness, and other fears one grew up with those days. While junior school brought with it discipline and following orders of seniors in preparation for more to come, our tryst with nature continued at Smith's Cave or Grasspitch. Raiding a field occasionally or lifting a loaf of junk on its way to senior school from the bakery were weekend adventures. Junior school of 1970, however, left indelible impressions on many of us 12 and 13-year-olds, and the thoughts of unfair punishment was probably something we all learned to avoid later on in our lives. The entire junior school was subject to severe skinning ups on several Sunday mornings after the prayer meeting in full view in the quadrangle, only because someone had either whispered, moved, coughed, or probably giggled during assembly. A senior school prefect found pleasure in this unchecked activity. So the learning was get tough, become better people, and always never rat on your colleagues. That prepared us for the 1 year of pizzaing in senior school. While each house in senior school had their own version of orientation and welcoming the pizzas on their first evening, after a full year of pizza service, while discipline was further emphasized, one learned never to question a senior. Ours not to question why, ours to do and die. Yet, we still had lovely memories and stories about building bonds, friendships, and enjoying the security of ourselves. whether it was making apple pies in the beds of pizzas or friends, or waking up someone in deep slumber after lights out and asking them, "Where's the egg? Where's the egg?" and noticing and noting their hilarious answers, or carrying sleeping pizzas, bed and all, down to the quadrangle. Those days there were steel beds, remember, or big bogs on a Saturday night, and leaving them there. As pizzas, we learned with experience that you shouldn't wake up, or else you had to help carry your own bed in any case. Making dummies in your bed while you bunk to Ooty, and we probably may never forget last dinner during endings at Shinkhaus in Ooty when we hosted the 11th standard seniors, which would end in great bonhomie and with pizzas and seniors walking back arm in arm from Ooty at night with some buckshots and song on everyone's lips. So while at Lovedale, going through life and the three schools, there were plenty of lessons one imbibed without even realizing that at a young age. Enforced discipline in dormitories, military training on the parade ground, teamwork on the sports ground, and the ability to excel in individuality while gaining respect were the positive takeaways that one would realize only later in life. On the batch of 75, we like to think of ourselves as trendsetters and those who set the benchmark. Let me explain something that many may not be aware of. Going back to school as a batch. At our 25th reunion in 2000, we found that the clock in the tower did not chime and discovered that it had been in disrepair for several years. The batch of 1975 initiated Project CTP 2000, or the Clock Tower Project. We met Harsh Wall, the then headmaster, at an OL meeting in Chennai the same year, and offered to restore with an idea that we would embed a plaque in the wall outside his office, acknowledging the contribution of the class of 75. We were certain that seeing the plaque, other batches would be motivated and inspired to do more and better. He agreed, and then the rest, of course, is history. While the batch of 75 restored the chime of time, we also replaced all the blackboards in prep school, junior school, and the science block with new ceramic boards, which were the fashion of the time. It is another story that due to petty politics several years later, the plaque was removed from prominence and reinstalled in some obscure place, we understand. We don't worry about politics. We set the trend, and that cannot be denied. That was the year we started connecting as a batch. Remember, there was no social media or WhatsApp those days. And thereafter, in 2006, with a concerted effort by many, we got almost 70% of our classmates on a Yahoo group and coordinated the 40th reunion in 2015. And finally, some notes from our batch archivist, Anand Manohar, aka Loki, who retains records from his fantastic memory dating 1964 to 1975. His bits. Our batch must have created two sorts of records, apart from the stellar performances in academics, athletics, and games. We probably had the maximum number of day scholars, he notes, children's awards and staff members, 6 boys and 7 girls, a total of 13 in our batch. We also probably had the highest number of students who ought to have passed out in the previous year, in 1974, 12 boys and 3 girls. He says these kids were the smart ones. They understood the greatness of Lovedale and spent an additional year doing some classes as 2-year courses. Other innocent kids were ushered in, out in a hurry. And that's my little story to all of you about class of 75, life down a trip of nostalgia. And I hope most of you have enjoyed that one.
Thank you, Captain Nair, for articulating so eloquently this trip down memory lane. Really, really appreciate the time you took out to join us. Thank you so much.
More than welcome. It is a pleasure to be with school and the old school group. Thank you very much.
Thank you and good evening.
Good evening.
So music, fellow Lawrencians, ladies and gentlemen, is a very big part of our OLA assembly. I'm speaking as though we've been doing this for a very long time, but I'm quite sure we will be doing this for a very long time to come. So music is a big part of it. And today we have Aanchal Bordoloi from the class of 2018. She is a singer, songwriter with the experience performing in venues across India, being a member of the Vienna Songwriter Circle, Austria, and performing with 2 bands there. She recently performed at her first music festival, Zomaland, Bangalore, and also with other organizations such as Sofa Sounds and House Concert India. She enjoys folk rock, country, indie music, and her influences include Bob Dylan, Mumford & Sons, Casey Musgraves, and Leon Bridges. We're now going to be joined by Aanchal, who's going to tell us about this incredible song that she's composed and performed, which we'll be showing you very shortly. But before we do that, we're going to have a quick chat with Aanchal. Hello, Aanchal. Hi, Aanchal. Is Aanchal there? I think we're having technical issues with Aanchal joining us. Please do bear with us. Like I said, this is our 3rd edition and we're still figuring out which platform works best for us. This is the 3rd platform we're trying in these many editions. So do bear with us, and apologies for any technical glitches that you may encounter. So I'm not seeing Aanchal here yet. I'm going to quickly check offline. Okay. So we're a quick change. We have we're going to get Aanchal back a little later. We're going to be joined in an interesting interaction by an OL. So before I go further, and while I do want to come back to, I hope I'm able to come back to Aanchal, and I hope that her tech issues and network issues are resolved quickly. We did do a dry run, but these things happen, folks. These are new times, and we're hoping that we're able to surmount these challenges. Johan Charco, 1991, and Sarah John, 1999, are supporting the OLE during this assembly to connect with old Laurentian musicians. And they're planning some really exciting things coming forward in the next sessions in the months to come. So, okay, it's now time to meet and greet P. Tyagarajan, batch of 1983. Dr. P. Tyagarajan, or Tyaga as he's popularly known, is from the batch of 1983. He is the MLA for Madurai Central Constituency in the 15th Legislative Assembly of Tamil Nadu, being elected on a DMK ticket on his maiden attempt in May 2016. He serves on the Assembly's Public Accounts Committee, will be continuing to serve till 2021. And he's founded the party's IT wing in 2017 and is party spokesperson focusing on the economy, state central budgets and finances, and policy matters. Tyaga was an expatriate in the US and Singapore for over 25 years, during which he was first a consultant. We know what consultants do. He was first a consultant and then an investment banker, holding senior positions at Lehman Brothers and Standard Chartered Bank. The list of Tyaga's achievements is long but inspirational, so I am going to read every single one of them out because there are young Laurentians out there who are very, very impressionable, and I think this is the kind of role model our young Laurentians need. Tyaga earned a BTech honors in chemical engineering from NIT Trichy, MS Operations Research, and a PhD in human factors engineering and engineering psychology from the State University of New York, and an MBA finance from the MIT Sloan School of Management. That's a lot of study. So before I get Tyaga on, I just want to say I am hugely impressed by this introduction. It's a lot for one lifetime. It's a lot for a lot of lifetimes. And the first question I'm going to ask you, good evening, Tyaga. How are you?
Very well. Thank you very much for that very gracious and kind
My name is Gul Tyaga, and I'm absolutely honored and delighted to be having this conversation with you. My first question to you is, how many years have you spent studying?
On and off, probably about 12 or 14 years after school.
Right. That's 12 years of schooling and 14 years after that. That's quite incredible. So the idea of having interactions like this, Tyaga, is to do a trip down memory lane and to take a trip down memory lane. Would you like to tell us what you were like in school?
Unremarkable. I was a backbencher. I was a bit shy, especially with the girls. I was a bit mischievous, trying to find where the bounds of kind of behavior were, but not particularly remarkable in any way.
I think you're being very modest. I think your list of achievements show a very different picture, but I'm going to let that go for now and ask you some very relevant questions to what school taught us. What if I were to ask you, what 3 skills you acquired in school that have stayed with you over the years, that have been part of your personal journey, that have been part of your professional journey, and are now applicable in this new phase of life that you've entered, the political phase?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Since I had this question yesterday, I had a chance to think. And rather than just give you the principle, I'd like to give you some examples of how I used those. So I think the first thing I learned is the value of human relationships and capabilities, irrespective of background, irrespective of differences and so forth. Certainly, I was a difficult kind of adapter to boarding school, and it taught me the value of the human network. And I think all my life, whether it was in business school, where I prided myself that at MIT, I knew almost all but 10 of the 350 of my classmates personally, and they knew me. Or, in politics, you realize however powerful you get, no man is an island. You still need to have networks. During this crisis, we have requests from so many people on so many obscure things that we would never have thought about. And the luxury of having, people to call at different levels of the system in different functions in the medical department, in the corporation, and so forth. If you did not have that personal network, if you just assumed that it came from power, you wouldn't be able to get these things done, because all these things break down during a crisis. So the value of human relationships, both at a sustenance level for you emotionally, as well as the network value of kind of human relationships, I think I learned at school, and they've been very useful to me. If I was to add one last thing, I would say that I had a pretty rough year as a 7th grade kind of junior. And I'm ashamed to say that reflected on my behavior when I was in 8th. I was frustrated, I was vengeful, and I took it out. And then I went to 9th grade, and I learned that everything is cyclical. Nothing is permanent. It comes and it goes. And I think my whole life I've leveraged that learning. At one time, I was doing successfully kind of as a professional. I gave that up to go back to school at the age of 35 or 33. I got out at 35. I had like 27 companies call me when I got out of Sloan. I was the topper. I thought I was top of the world. 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, I was at the Twin Towers when the planes crashed. All of a sudden, the world was different again.
Wow.
Then, 7 or 8 years later, I was at a very senior position at Lehman Brothers. Our stocks were worth millions of dollars. It was $80 a share. And then a few months later, it was down to zero. And the global financial crisis
wiped us out. 2008 happened.
Yeah. And then I went to Standard Chartered and rose all the way to the top there again, was in a very senior position. And then I decided I was going to leave and come back to politics. And I had to start at the bottom again. Now in politics, you realize some days you're minister, some days you're MLA, some days you're nobody. So, nothing is permanent, nothing is forever. Life has got ups and downs, and the equanimity to understand that and to deal with, people the same way without getting too big or kind of having to bow and keep your composure and your kind of even keel is something I learned a lot. I learned at school, and it's helped me a lot through life, through, specific instances that I can tell you.
Thank you. I think that's been a life lesson for all of us, which has encapsulated your life journey. I'm sure you've abridged it substantially and made light of the challenges, but it is inspiring to hear, Tyaga. I must say it's very, very inspiring to hear that you've managed to rise literally like a phoenix every time circumstances brought you down. And I wish you all the very best in your political journey as well. Taking you back to school again, if you had to pick one teacher that impacted you the most at Lawrence School, Lovedale, who would that be?
It's very hard for me because I think teachers as a whole have impacted my life as most lives quite a bit. In particular, people that came from privileged backgrounds who could have easily taken one of two paths, one towards greater productivity and engagement with society, and one towards a less impactful, but still luxurious and successfully, financially successful life. I think the teachers are the ones who basically helped determine that path. And since it was so early in my life that I was at Lovedale, I remember so many. I remember my housemaster BL Singh at Kaveri for his compassion. I remember Mr. Raghavan for his math and his storytelling. I remember Mr. P.V. Ramchandran at junior school, who, though I used to get in trouble with him all the time, always paid attention and made sure I was engaged in class for math because I was a good math student. But if I put all of it together, I'd say it's the love for English and the skill in English that has really been a huge asset to me. I'm otherwise a math inclined tech guy anyway, but the language, both the love for it and the skill in it, has been a huge asset in my life, professionally and in politics. And I remember two teachers distinctly. One, of course, Mr. Uman in senior school, who taught us a very meticulous approach to grammar and writing. And no one can forget Mrs. Enos, who I'm very thrilled to have the opportunity to see later today, who taught us early on the structural foundations of English and the ability to kind of, craft whole sentences and letters that we used to write home. My father used to complain that after I left prep school, I stopped writing letters home, and he'd only know I was alive because I used to sign bills at the clubs in Ooty, and only then he'd know I was alive and kicking. But till I was in prep school, I wrote letters every single week, and I think Mrs. Enos had certainly a big impact on that.
I think it touches a bit of an emotional chord for me as well, and I'm sure everybody listening will feel the same way. Speaking of emotions, what does Never Given evoke in you from an emotional standpoint? How do you think of Never Given in life, personally, professionally, in all the various challenges that life throws at you?
Well, I think, what it really stands for in my mind is that I start with the realization that life is unfair, that outcomes are unfair, that starting points are unfair, that there is no level playing field. And that's a very hard realization for most people to take. We start idealistic, we start kind of, very egalitarian in our outlook to life. And sooner or later, we meet these barriers in life where it teaches us that things are not fair. It's based on race or gender or caste or some other constraint, or, I was an immigrant in the US. So you realize both ways. I come from the Dravidian legacy. My grandfather and others in the Justice Party were upper caste here, but when they went to Oxbridge, they realized they were at the bottom. So what you realize, I think, is that precisely because life is unfair, precisely because it is not a level playing field, then you must keep fighting, because it's not like there are fair outcomes. You keep fighting, and in fact, you fight to change the system to make it fairer, to make it more level, to make it a better place for everybody. And that resilience that you have to search for after you get knocked down, after you realize it's not a fair fight, it's not a level playing field, that's what Never Given means to me.
I think that's very well articulated. I feel the hardest battles, Tyaga, are the ones which seem futile when you start. And it's just that spirit of saying never give in that probably, of course, for us, it's a school motto, but it's actually a way of life. Because to give up at a place because the outcome may not be as you desire or commiserate to the efforts you put in is the easy way out. But to fight a battle when the end just seems hopeless is really where true character shines through. What does being an outsider in politics mean? You've come from a completely different background, banking, that has its own share of ups and downs, and you've seen a fair amount. How does the transition to politics?
Yeah, at some level, I'm the ultimate insider. So I won't say I'm that far an outsider as an individual. I'm an outsider, but I'm the fourth generation of my family in the Dravidian movement, third generation elected rep. So I had the ultimate ramp. I stand on the shoulders of my forefathers. But I think the distinction I find is that there's very little correlation between kind of professional skills and the ability to be a good policy maker or a good legislator, and what it took to succeed in the party system or in the electoral system. Now, politicians come from society. We don't fall from the sky. So if the system is broken, it's reflective of the fact that society's values and society's expectations, and maybe society has given up hope that there can be good outcomes. So this disconnect between kind of what it takes to be successful for the people and what it takes to be successful in politics is a very difficult bridge. But the two things that I see give me hope. One is that, you know, over and above any professionalism, any qualification, any skill, the real asset of a politician is compassion. The ability to connect to the people and understand what they want and reach them is compassion. And the people are very smart. At least in Tamil Nadu, the voters can see that. They understand whose values are what, who is actually caring and who's not. And I think that humility that you get, however smart you are, however rich you are, you go stand on the street with your hands folded and you go from, you know, poor area to poor area asking for votes, inculcates that compassion and awareness and value in you. And I think the second kind of positive thing is that there are very few really lazy people in politics. You know, there might be people of various moralities or various skills, but almost everybody in politics is really hardworking. It's very difficult to be successful in politics and not be a kind of, 12-hour a day, 14-hour a day worker. So I think, you know, the system is evolving. I'm grateful for the opportunity. It's hard for me to look down on anything. You know, after I'm successful to a level enough, then I'll tell you what I think is bad. But for now, we fight the fight and we adapt to the system we have and try to succeed within it.
Well, I think thank you for that very candid assessment of what it's like to sort of enter politics as an outsider on the surface, but not clearly an outsider, given the fact that there's a lineage that's been supporting supporting politics for some time. Thank you so much, Tyaga. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege to have this conversation with you, and I'm glad that we have such a versatile group of Lawrencians, a pool of such accomplished people like yourselves who give us their time and join us on these OLA assemblies. Thank you very, very much, and good evening.
Very kind of you. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. So, folks, I'm told that Aanchal is back. So we're now going to try and get Aanchal back and have a conversation with her about the song that we're going to play for you, and see whether she's here. Okay, is Aanchal here? Is Aanchal here? Okay, so Aanchal's connection is still unstable, but we are going to play the song that has been composed and performed by her. Do tune in. I guess you don't have a choice because Karthik is controlling everybody who tunes in and tunes out. So here's the song that Aanchal was going to talk about, but she's unable to speak to us about it because of the fact that her connection is giving us trouble. There are too many people at home doing webinars. There's her song.
Oh, it's so wild today, gonna lose my mind. Walking all these lonely miles, found me someone can take off my mind. And I can move for a while. I guess we all need someone to love, but man, this fighting's been so tough. You've given me a new kind of energy, and when I love passionately. You're not the guy I thought you'd be, but you've so swiftly taken me. But I'm only 18, baby. I'm still thick, you're still. They're calling, how the sweet ocean breeze is blowing. What do you mean to me? You ain't gonna be stuck on my mind, 'cause we'll soon be in the streets. Oh, just a matter of time. passionately. You're the guy I thought you'd be, but you've so swiftly taken me. But I'm only 18, baby. I'm still thick as steel. Monsters underneath my bed, just like I'm trying to get you, I'm trying to get you, trying to get you off my head. Yeah, I still touch the monsters underneath my bed, 'cause you ain't worth being in my head. But you've given me this new kind of energy, and when I love, and I so love passionately, oh God, I thought you'd be, you so swiftly taking me. I'm only 18, baby. I'm still sick, still.
Hi, Anshul, can you hear us? I can see Anshul.
Hi, I can hear you.
Hi, Anshul, how are you?
Hello.
Hi, Anshul, can you hear us? I can see you.
Hi, I'm good. I just want to know if I'm audible.
You are audible. You are audible. And you are
Can you
visible
hear
as
me?
well.
Yeah, so I've had to shift places a million times because the internet suddenly went off. So I'm sorry for the light.
There's too many people using up all the bandwidth sitting at home during lockdown, or rather during social distancing. So lockdown is over, we're unlock 1, but I guess people are still working from home.
Yeah,
And it's the weekend.
well, I stay in Assam, so you can expect how the network would be here.
Wow. I mean, I'm in
It's
Punjab,
terrible network.
middle of my village.
Yeah.
So I think technology has taken us very far that we're able to speak and have these virtual conversations and connect with folks thanks to the OLA Assembly. So Anshul, tell me what inspired you to take to music? Were you a musician in school as well, or is this something that you pursued once you came out? Hi, Anshul, can you hear me?
So I was in the choir with Mano sir. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello.
I can hear you.
Yeah, so I was in the choir with Mano sir. I was in the choir with Mano sir, and we had several teachers. So I remember my guitar teachers. So we had JK sir, we had Vivek sir, and then we had Mr. Denzel Prince sir. So due to these wonderful teachers, I got an opportunity to perform at the Western Orchestra, and because of experiences like this, my expertise improved as well, and because of that, I was able to find an identity for myself. So especially in schools, every day after baths, I would go down to the lawns and I would just sing and practice for 1 hour before prep. So that was how I basically enjoyed my time, and I also found my way through music. Yeah, so yeah, with these teachers, I'm so thankful that I was able to learn from them.
Thank you, Anshul, and I wish you all the very best. And you know, you have the entire O Laurentian network to count on, to build up and rise as and when you want to, and build your entire foundation on. We'll always be there to support you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So we now have a very, very special guest joining us in a short while, and to tell you a little bit more about her, we're going to have a series of videos that Karthik is going to play. But let me tell you about this special guest first. Mrs. Enos. Mrs. Enos joined Lawrence Lovedale in July 1948, 72 years ago. Mrs. Enos was teaching at St. Joseph's Convent, Coonoor, before coming to Lawrence School, Lovedale in 1948. She was under Mr. Suraj Bhan, India's the first Indian headmaster of Lawrence School after independence. When she joined Lovedale, she was a young Miss Cunningham and was married to Mr. V. Enos in December 1950, and she retired in the late 1980s. She has taught nearly 40 batches of Laurentians. 40 batches of Laurentians. Karthik, I will request you to please play the two videos that we've curated about her, and then we will have some old Laurentians come on and chat about Mrs. Enos. The videos, please. I think we have another video, Karthik. Are you playing the other video as well? Okay. I think it's now time to meet Mrs. Enos after, I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to teach 40 batches of Laurentians. It's a hell of an achievement. And she is going to be joining us very, very shortly. And Sangeeta Jairam will be in conversation with her. Now, a little bit about Sangeeta Jairam. Sangeeta Jairam from the class of 1987. A Laurentian who has come back to Lovedale to teach. A yoga teacher from Bangalore who decided to move to Ooty to introduce yoga in school in 2016. A program sponsored by the class of 1966 as they give back, celebrating their 50th year of leaving school. She's also the alumni coordinator at school, an avid motorcyclist, and a lover of nature. She loves teaching and loves being in school again. We're going to get Sangeeta here, who is going to have a conversation with Mrs. Enos, and let's see. Do we have Enos?
Yes. Hello. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mrs. Enos,
Yes.
are we on, Karthik?
Yes, you're on. Hi, Sangeeta. Yes,
Hi. I'm on? Okay. So I would like to introduce now Mrs. Enos. We've been having a lovely evening and a cup of tea.
Yes.
And I was wondering if all of you knew where Mrs. Enos began her life. So she's going to tell us a little about where she was born, and you would be really surprised to hear. So Mrs. Enos, tell us where you were born.
I was born in Makara
Markara in Coorg.
at Coorg.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
And how did you get to be in Coorg, Mrs. Enos?
My father was planter.
A coffee planter in
Yes.
Coorg. Okay. And you were born on
28th August 1921.
28th August 1921.
Yeah.
So you're going to celebrate your 99th birthday, and there are hundreds of messages wishing you.
I can already see them.
Yes.
And I'm very touched.
Yes.
Very touched.
Very touched, yes.
Yes.
So you have, you retired in 1981.
Yeah.
And after you retired, Mrs. Enos, what is it that you did?
Well, before I retired, I began a school. So when I retired, I had something to do.
So the name of your school was?
Angelica.
Angelica. So when we were in school, we had many incidents with Mrs. Enos. Like if I told her, Mrs. Enos, I'll do it tomorrow.
Laliki. Laliki varapode.
Yes. And so these were some of the, things that Mrs. Enos said that none of us ever forgot. And Mrs. Enos, now, when you're sitting at home, how do you keep yourself occupied?
Well, there's a lot to do in the house. And for peace of mind, I do some drawing.
These are what Mrs. Enos has done. This is what she does to keep herself busy. Isn't that amazing? Okay, now Mrs. Enos, you taught our OLA president.
Yes, Johnny, is it?
Yes, Johnny Paul.
Johnny, yeah.
So tell us something about Johnny Paul, your memory of Johnny Paul.
No, Johnny was, Johnny is, never was. Johnny is and still a naughty boy.
Okay.
When Johnny was in the prep school, I was on duty, and it was founders and the preppers were asked to, we were invited to the rehearsals. So I was on duty to take him to take all the preppers to the top flats, the middle flats, to watch the PT display. So we all sat together on the banks, the grass banks. And by the side was, the people were sitting down. Now I didn't know who was sitting alongside us. It was dark. The lights went off. And only the lights of the middle flats were on. And this little boy was jumping and wrestling and pinching people and all that. And he wouldn't settle down. So I said to him, Johnny Paul, keep quiet and see what is happening. He wouldn't listen to me. I called him again. No. Then a torchlight came on. And I don't know the torchlight. And the headmaster looked at him. Johnny Paul, keep quiet.
Isn't that
Behold, it was really
Johnny Paul. So that is our OLA president, Johnny Paul. And Mrs.
I don't
Enos,
know if Johnny still remembers the incident.
we will ask him. We will ask Gul to ask him. So some of the other things, some of the other things you said.
You see, when I used to teach also maths. And when a child could not grasp what was taught, I was wondering what to do. Anyway, I said, child of grace, come here with a wooden face. I will try and help you.
And what about the pulling up of your socks?
Then one day, I was taking the children out again for a walk. It was for a walk. And we were going to the senior school, the preppers. So I told them, now you behave yourself. Come on, pull up your socks and come on. They were all pulling up their socks.
And what about if we called you ma'am?
Now, when I entered the school, I was Miss Cunningham, of course. Then I said to myself, I am not ma'am, I'm not nobody. I'm a person. I am sent here to look after my children. And Ma'am is anybody, but a certain person has got a certain name. So I said, you will next time call me Mrs. Enos and not ma'am.
So that is our Mrs. Enos. She has two children, Tina Enos, who's from the batch of 1975, and Marcel Enos, who's the batch of 1969. Marcel lives in Mysore and Tina in Bangalore. And it's been an absolute delight to have spent time with Mrs. Enos. Every time any old Laurentian comes here, she is most gracious, most generous, most loving, and remembers each one by our face and has a story for each one of us when she meets us. So it's been wonderful, Mrs. Enos. We will meet you again next month for your birthday.
It's a pleasure.
And
It's a pleasure, my pleasure to meet you all and to talk to meet the old Laurentians as they were giving their memories of their years in the Lawrence School.
Okay, over to you, Gul. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. His new goal. I do hope I could be half Mrs. Enos's in terms of alertness, in terms of eloquence when I'm 99. My good Lord, ma'am, it's been such an honor to hear you speak and to recount tales from your vast experience of life and as a teacher at Lawrence School, Lovedale. And here's wishing you happy birthday in advance. And it is absolute joy to see you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Good evening. Well, that is an eye-opener indeed. I don't think I've come across anybody who is 99 who is so alert and so clear about her memories, and who is holding her own and keeping us on our toes, as she has memories and stories for each of the folks that she has taught over the years. And 40 batches is a lot of students, and I'm surprised at how she can keep track of all those stories. Well, I'd now like to call upon Ms. Elizabeth Beliappa Nitharakan, Vice President, OLA, batch of 1970, to thank Mrs. Enos. Welcome back, Elizabeth.
Yes, Mrs. Enos, thank you ever so much for being our very first former teacher to come as our special guest on the OL Assembly. I'm sure more than half of the alumni have had the privilege of being taught by you in prep school. Seeing you here on this platform has opened floodgates of memories for us, and I'm sure for you as well. You have definitely been one of the strongest pillars of the school, especially as you molded so many of us in our formative years, class 4 in our days. Some of us joined school when we were barely 5 years plus in the first standard, and it unquestionably was the best days of our time at school. All our teachers have left a very deep impression on us, and you for sure are right up there. On a personal note, I come from a large family, the Tharakans, and we have been extremely privileged, as you have taught each and one of us, 7 siblings, that's my family alone, from the batch of 1963 right down to the batch of 1985. Definitely a record by itself. It doesn't stop there. It was when I came to admit my oldest son in school in 1990 that I got to know of your home school, Angelica, where you were preparing children for entrance exams to various schools. A lot of us from my batch, the 1970 batch, had admitted our children. So we sent our children to homeschool with you. So my daughter from the batch of 2002 and my younger son from the batch of 2005 came to study with you. It was such a beautiful transition for them from home to a boarding school. So my personal bonding with you became even stronger as a parent. Once again, on behalf of the OLA, I want to thank you for making it convenient to come on this assembly. We also want to wish you a happy 99th birthday in advance and many, many more years of good health and good cheer. A special thanks to Sangeeta for facilitating this for the OLA and for being there with Mrs. Enos through this whole chat. It was really something, and I'm sure it has brought a lump to very many people's throat. Thank you so much, and thank all the participants. And Gul, over to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. Folks, with that, we've come to the end of the third edition of the OLA Assembly. I'd like to thank the entire team behind the scenes that puts this together. Everybody has a lot on their hands, and Karthik, the OLA team, Arjun Rao. I have no idea how folks are finding time in these times, especially when there's dual roles that we're all playing both at home and at work. So I'm really grateful to the OLA for doing this month on month, and for those folks who actually support this by taking out time to put it together. It's quite a task. Well, a little heads up about the next session. The next Saturday, it'll be on the second Saturday of the month, and we will also be featuring more musical performances by OLs and be in conversation with the batches of 1980 and 2000. And with that, it's time to say goodbye. And as always, we will play the school song. Karthik, if you could please play the video.